Do you feel constantly on edge, like your nervous system is on override? What if a simple ocean painting could be your secret to profound calm and regulation? In this video, I will reveal how the meditative power of ocean watercolor painting directly impacts your nervous system, guiding you to the state of peace and inner balance. Stay with me to unlock this powerful healing secret. Welcome back to my channel. This is Deepika, and I'm here to help you slow down, release stress, and reconnect with yourself using watercolor techniques. We would need 300 GSM watercolor paper and watercolors, clean water, and a flat brush and few round ones. Before we begin painting today, I would like to invite you to pause for just a moment. Life moves so quickly. Our days are filled with notifications, responsibilities, conversations, deadlines. Sometimes, even when we are physically resting, our minds continue to race. If you have ever felt mentally exhausted despite doing nothing, you're not alone. Today's session isn't about creating a perfect painting. It's about creating a gentle experience for your mind and body. Think of this as a quiet conversation between you, the water, the pigments, and the paper. By the end of this session, I hope you don't just walk away with a beautiful ocean painting. I hope you walk away feeling lighter, calmer, and a little more connected to yourself. Let's begin by preparing our paper. I am wetting about 3/4 of the sheet, leaving the lower portion dry for now. I love taking my time during this stage because this is where everything begins. The water is preparing the paper, almost like we are preparing our minds before meditation. Notice how the paper changes as it absorbs the water. Nothing exciting has happened yet, and yet this step is incredibly important. Sometimes the quiet beginnings matter just as much as the finished result. Today, we'll begin painting a peaceful ocean scene. The ocean has always fascinated me. It can be powerful and wild, yet it can also be incredibly gentle. If you have ever sat by the beach and simply watched the waves, probably noticed something interesting. Like you don't get bored. Waves after waves arrives, waves after waves returns. Nothing dramatic changes. Yet, somehow, you feel more peaceful the longer you watch. Scientists sometimes talk about how repetitive natural patterns can gently hold our attention. When our attention rests on something steady, like waves, rain, leaves moving in the wind, or even the repetitive movement of a paintbrush, it can help shift us away from the constant mental chatter. Painting doesn't magically erase stress, but for many people, it becomes a wonderful way to slow down, focus, and reconnect with the present moment. If you have watched my videos before, you will know I have a soft spot for blues. But I also love mixing just a little green into my blues. It creates this beautiful ocean shade that reminds me of the sea after a cloudy day. Let's take one slow breath together. Breathe in slowly through your nose. Hold it gently and slowly breathe out. Instead of painting every inch, I am simply dropping the pigment onto the wet paper. And now comes my favorite part. Rather than forcing the paint everywhere, I am gently guiding it towards the left side of the paper. Notice that I am not painting every detail. The water is doing so much of the work for me here. This is one of the biggest lessons watercolor teaches us. Guide, do not force. Support, do not control. Allow, don't rush. If we try to overwork the paint, we lose those beautiful soft transitions. But when we trust the water, something magical begins to happen. As I watch these pigments travel, I always feel like I'm watching tiny rivers finding their own path. Now I'm beginning to create the first gentle layers of the ocean. Notice that these aren't dramatic crashing waves, they are soft, horizontal strokes that quietly build the feeling of water stretching towards the horizon. There is no need to force relaxation. We are simply creating the conditions where calm has room to appear. One of the things I love most about watercolor is that it teaches us something life keeps trying to teach us. We don't have to control everything. Unlike acrylics or oils, watercolor has a mind of its own. That's what I believe. Because water moves where it wants to move. Pigments travel in unexpected ways. Sometimes they surprise us with beautiful textures that we could never have planned. Instead of fighting that unpredictability, we learn to collaborate with it. And maybe that's a lesson we can take beyond the paper. Every movement is different, every painting becomes unique. Even if you and I painted this together using the exact same colors, our paintings would still be different. And I think that's what is beautiful. Your painting doesn't need to look like mine, it only needs to be yours. Let's take another gentle breath together while we watch the colors settle. Inhale slowly and exhale. Notice your shoulders. Are they still tense? See if you can soften them just a little. Relax your jaw, relax your hands. Let your breathing become as gentle as the ocean we are painting. Near the horizon, I am introducing a soft touch of yellow, just a little, almost as though the evening sun is quietly hiding behind the clouds. I don't want this to become a bright sunset. I want it to feel subtle, peaceful. Notice how we don't need to blend every edge with the brush. Again, the water takes care of that for us. There is something incredibly comforting about watching the watercolor flow. Have you ever noticed that when you're deeply focused on something creative, time begins to disappear? Psychologists sometimes describe this as entering a state of deep engagement, where our attention becomes absorbed in the activity we are doing. During moments like these, many people notice that the constant stream of worries become quieter, not because the problems disappear, but because for a little while our attention has somewhere peaceful to rest. As this background continues drawing naturally, let's simply observe it. No rushing, no fixing, just observing. Nature has never been in a hurry. Clouds don't rush across the sky. The tide doesn't hurry towards the shore. Flowers don't bloom overnight. And yet, everything arrives exactly when it's meant to. Perhaps today we can offer ourselves that same patience. What do you say? I'm beginning to suggest the first wave forms. I'm not outlining every wave. Instead, I'm letting a few darker strokes create the illusion of movement. Our eyes naturally connect these shapes and begin seeing water. Painting isn't always about describing every detail. Sometimes it's about inviting the viewer's imagination to participate. As I paint these waves, I'm reminded that the ocean never apologizes for changing. It's calm, stormy, and some days it's almost completely still, and yet it's always the ocean. Perhaps we are the same. This painting is slowly becoming an ocean, but more importantly, I hope this time is becoming a pause in your day, a place where you're not trying to prove anything, not trying to impress anyone, just allowing yourself to create. Sometimes that's enough. As I look across the soft wash of blue, I imagine standing on a quiet beach early in the morning. The air feels cool, the breeze is gentle, you can hear distant waves rolling towards the shore. The sky is painted with soft blues and hints of warm light. For just a moment, allow yourself to be there. Imagine your feet resting on cool sand. Imagine breathing in the fresh ocean air. Imagine the sound of the waves matching the rhythm of your breathing. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Now comes the part that always makes me smile, adding the white foam. These little highlights are surprisingly simple, yet they completely change the feeling of the waves. Suddenly, the ocean begins sparkling. The movement becomes believable. You almost hear the water. It's amazing how just a few carefully placed highlights can create so much life. When I paint foam, I don't try to make every splash identical. Real waves aren't symmetrical, they break differently every single time. Some disappear quietly, some leave tiny bubbles behind. Allow your brush to dance. Don't overthink. Trust your instincts. One thing I've learned over the years is that confidence in watercolor doesn't come from controlling every brushstroke. It comes from becoming comfortable with uncertainty. I'm beginning to deepen some of the darker areas beneath the waves. This step may seem small, but it changes the painting dramatically. Darkness gives light somewhere to shine. Without shadows, the highlights lose their magic. Without contrast, everything feels flat. Watercolor constantly reminds me that light becomes more meaningful because darkness exists. The same is often true in life. Many of our deepest moments of gratitude are born after seasons of difficulty. The challenging moments don't define us, but they often help us recognize the beautiful ones. As I continue adding these darker values beneath the waves, the water suddenly begins to feel more alive. Did you notice that? The waves appear to lift, they gain volume, depth, movement. Sometimes a painting doesn't need more details, it simply needs stronger values. That's one of the biggest lessons watercolor has taught me. I'm adding the sand. I love the stage because it balances the painting. Up until now, we have mostly been surrounded by cool blues. The warm, earthly tones immediately create contrast. The beach becomes a place where the ocean can finally rest. As I add these sandy colors, I'm allowing some uneven textures to remain. Nature is beautifully imperfect. Real beaches aren't perfectly smooth. They hold footprints, shells, small stones, tiny ripples created by the tide. Those imperfections make them beautiful. Sometimes we spend so much of our lives trying to smooth out every imperfection within ourselves. We think we need to become more productive, more successful, more confident, more organized, more perfect. But nature never asks that of itself. The ocean doesn't apologize for rough waves. The sky doesn't apologize for cloudy mornings. Trees don't apologize for losing their leaves. Perhaps today we can offer ourselves that same kindness. Let's take one slow breath together. Breathe in slowly through your nose. Hold it gently and slowly breathe out. Once more, inhale and exhale. This painting isn't asking you to be an artist today. It's inviting you to become an observer of color, an observer of water, an observer of your own thoughts. If your mind wanders, and it probably will, that's completely okay. Simply notice it. Then gently bring your attention back to the moment of the brush, back to the colors, back to this moment. Our background is now beginning to settle beautifully. I'm allowing some areas to remain lighter here. Those untouched spaces will later become reflections and highlights. Sometimes the most important thing in watercolor is knowing what not to paint. White paper can become sunlight. It can become foam. It can become sparkling reflections. By leaving space, we give the painting room to breathe. Perhaps we also need to leave a little space in our own lives. Not every hour needs to be filled. Not every silence needs to be interrupted. Sometimes space is where peace quietly enters. Notice how slowly I'm working. There's absolutely no rush. If I hurry through this stage, I lose the opportunity to observe. Observation is one of the greatest gifts painting gives us. We begin noticing tiny things, a soft edge, a beautiful bloom, a reflection, a subtle color shift. And once we train ourselves to notice beauty on paper, we often begin noticing it in everyday life too. Let's pause together for another slow breath. Inhale gently. Imagine the fresh scent of ocean. Exhale slowly. Imagine every exhale carrying away a little mental tension. Again, inhale calm, exhale softness. Allow your hands to become lighter. Allow your brush to glide rather than press. As I'm painting the sky, I move my brush from one side to another. I notice something interesting. My breathing naturally begins to slow. Without consciously trying, my movements become steadier. This happens to many people during repetitive creative activities. We are no longer thinking about 10 different things at once. We are simply following the movement, brush stroke after brush stroke. I would like you to try something with me. As your brush moves across the paper, breathe in. As your brush lifts, breathe out. There is no need to count, no need to force deep breaths. Simply allow the movement of your brush to guide the rhythm of your breathing. Painting becomes the metronome. The brush becomes the reminder to return to the present. One of the reasons oceans feel calming to so many people is their predictability. Every wave is different, yet every wave belongs to the same rhythm. Nature repeats patterns over and over again: waves, rain, wind, birdsong, leaves swaying. Our minds often find comfort in these gentle repetitions. As we paint these repeating lines across the paper, perhaps we are borrowing just a little of that rhythm for ourselves. I am continuing to build layers using slightly darker values. Water is rarely just one shade of blue. It reflects the sky, the clouds, the depth beneath the surface. Sometimes it's turquoise, sometimes it's deep teal, sometimes almost gray. I love mixing tiny touches of green into my blues because it creates this rich ocean color that feels alive. You don't have to copy my exact color palette. Choose the colors that feel peaceful to you. This painting is about your experience. Notice how each new layer adds a little more depth. Watercolor is patient. Instead of covering everything at once, it slowly builds richness through transparent layers. Life often works the same way. Growth usually isn't one dramatic transformation. It's made of small moments repeated consistently. A kind conversation, a quiet walk, a few mindful breaths, a few minutes spent creating. Little by little, they begin to change us. If your painting doesn't look exactly as you imagined, that's perfectly okay. Actually, I would encourage you to not compare it to mine. Comparison steals the joy of creating. Instead, become curious. What is your water doing? How are your colors blending? What surprises are appearing on your paper? Watercolor rewards curiosity far more than perfection. I'm beginning by introducing the shoreline here. Notice how simple it really is. There isn't a complicated technique here, just a few thoughtful strokes, a few lighter values, a few lighter spaces. The shoreline isn't meant to steal attention. Instead, it gently welcomes the waves, almost like two old friends meeting each other again and again. We have reached the stage where every new brushstroke becomes a choice rather than a necessity. The painting already feels complete. Now we are simply listening to what the painting might still need. Sometimes that's another highlight, sometimes a darker shadow, sometimes absolutely nothing. One of the most difficult lessons in watercolor is learning when to stop. Not every empty space needs another stroke, not every corner needs another detail. Sometimes restraint creates more beauty than adding more paint. As I make these final adjustments, I'm slowing down even more. There is no finish line to rush forward. There is no finish line to rush toward. There is only this brush stroke and then the next. This reminds me of something I often forget in daily life. We spend so much time thinking about what's next, the next goal, the next responsibility, the next achievement. Rarely do we pause to appreciate what is already unfolding. Today, this painting has invited us to do exactly that. I'm softening a few edges, strengthening a few shadows beneath the waves, adding tiny touches where the water catches the light. Notice how the smallest changes can completely transform the painting. Sometimes a single darker value beneath a wave suddenly makes the entire ocean feel alive. Life often works in the same quiet way. Tiny, consistent actions create lasting change. One mindful breath, one kind thought, 10 minutes spent creating instead of scrolling. These small moments slowly shape who we become. I would like to invite you to pause your brush for just a moment. Simply look at your painting. Notice it without judging. without immediately searching for mistakes. Our brains naturally focus on what isn't finished. Today, let's gently practice something different. Can you find one area that genuinely makes you smile? Maybe it's the texture in the sky. Maybe it's the movement of the waves. Maybe it's one tiny bird. Allow yourself to appreciate it. You created that. Gratitude is an interesting practice. The more we intentionally notice what's already beautiful, the easier it becomes to notice beauty elsewhere. Perhaps that's why creative practices can feel so nourishing. They gently retain our attention. Instead of constantly scanning for problems, we begin noticing colors, textures, light, small moments. Let's take another slow breath together. Breathe in deeply and slowly breathe out. Notice your shoulders. Have they softened since we started? Notice your breathing. Notice your hands. Notice your thoughts. You don't need to change anything, just notice. Many researchers studying mindfulness talk about the importance of present moment awareness. When we gently return our attention to what's happening right now, our breathing, our movements, the colors in front of us, we often create a small pause in the cycle of constant thinking. Painting offers us one beautiful way of practicing that skill. Not because watercolor is magical, but because it gently invites our attention back to the present, again and again and again. The ocean has been our teacher today. It reminded us to move slowly, to repeat simple rhythms, to trust the process, to accept unpredictability, to allow movement without forcing it. Water doesn't fight the rocks, it flows around them. Perhaps there's wisdom in that. Our painting is almost complete. Before we add a final signature touches, I would like you to close your eyes just for few seconds. Imagine standing on this beach. You're, you hear the waves rolling in. A cool breeze brushes across your face. The sky stretches endlessly above you. Birds glide effortlessly through the air. Nothing is asking you to hurry. Nothing needs your attention right now. For this one quiet moment, you are exactly where you need to be. Slowly open your eyes. Take one more look at your painting. This isn't just paper and pigment anymore. It's a record. It's a record of your presence. For nearly an hour, you chose yourself. You chose stillness. You chose creativity. That matters. Our horizon is looking beautifully soft now. Once the background is completely dry, I'm adding one of the simplest details in the painting. a distant island. Notice how effortless it is. Just one horizontal brush stroke. Nothing complicated. Because objects far away naturally lose detail. Sometimes beginners think distant objects should have more detail. Actually, it's often the opposite. The less detail we add, the farther away they appear. It's a wonderful little watercolor trick. That tiny island completely changes the story without saying anything. It suggests distance, adventure, possibility. The world suddenly feels much larger. Amazing that how one simple brushstroke can create and change the entire mood of a painting. Now, I'm adding a few birds in the sky. Birds are one of my favorite finishing touches. They are incredibly simple, just tiny expressive marks. Yet, our minds immediately recognize them. They bring movement into stillness. Whenever I paint birds, I imagine them riding the ocean breeze, free, weightless, going wherever the wind gently carries them. Perhaps that's something we all long for from time to time, to feel a little lighter, to stop carrying every worry, to simply breathe, to trust that not every answer needs to arrive today, right? Take another look at your painting. Notice how far it has come. About more than half an hour ago, it was simply a blank sheet of paper. Now it's becoming a peaceful place, a place that didn't exist before. You created that. Not because you're perfect, not because every brushstroke went exactly as planned, but because you stayed with the process. As we bring today's painting to a close, I'd like us to end the same way we began, not by rushing away, but by pausing. Take one final slow breath with me. Inhale deeply, hold it gently, slowly exhale. Again, inhale calm, exhale tension. When we first sat together, this was simply a blank sheet of paper. There was no sky, no ocean, no waves, no birds, no peaceful horizon. One gentle brush stroke at a time, and something beautiful slowly emerged. Not because every stroke was perfect, but because you stayed with the process. I think that's a beautiful reminder for life. Growth rarely happens all at once. Peace isn't something we suddenly achieve one day. It's something we gently practice. One conversation, one walk, one breath, one painting, one quiet evening. Over time, those moments begin to shape us. If your painting looks different from mine, I hope you'll celebrate that. The ocean itself never creates the same wave twice. So, why should our paintings be any different? Your brush carries your story. Your colors carry your mood. Your painting carries your experience. That's what makes it meaningful. Perhaps you will frame this painting. Perhaps you will gift it to someone. Or perhaps it simply becomes a reminder that for one peaceful hour, you allowed yourself to slow down. And honestly, that might be the most valuable masterpiece of all. Before we finish, I would love to ask you a question. How do you feel now compared to when you first started? Not how your painting looks. How do you feel? A little calmer? More present? Maybe simply grateful that you took this time for yourself. I would genuinely love to hear your experience. Share it with me in the comments below. Your story might encourage someone else to begin their own creative journey. If this painting helped you reconnect with yourself today, I would love to invite you to continue this journey with me. Every week, we explore watercolor techniques, calming ocean paintings, mindful creativity, and simple art practices that help us slow down in fast-moving world. If that sounds like something your heart needs, I would be honored to have you here. So don't forget to subscribe and join our growing community of calm creators. And before you leave today, I have one tiny invitation. Sometime this week, put your phone aside for just 15 minutes, pick up a brush, some paper, few colors, and simply play. No expectations, no pressure, just curiosity. Because creativity isn't reserved for artists, it's part of being human. Thank you for trusting me with this quiet hour. Until we paint together again, take care of your mind, be gentle with yourself, trust your own rhythm, and remember, just like the ocean, you don't have to be still to be peaceful. You simply have to keep returning to yourself. One breath, one brushstroke, and one beautiful wave at a time. I'll see you in the next session.